I used to be in such a hurry to become an auntie. Now I'm in my 20s and I'll give anything to be a child again for just a few days. When I was younger, I thought getting here would mean I'll finally have life figured out. I couldn't have been more wrong. I thought my 20s were going to be the best years of my life. I couldn't wait to grow up. I thought freedom would solve everything. I imagined making my own decisions, going wherever I wanted, spending my own money, and finally living life on my own terms. No one telling me what to do, no asking for permission, no rules, just freedom. I really believe adulthood was the part of life where everything would finally come together. And I got here and I realized your 20s don't just give you freedom. They also introduce you to responsibility, uncertainty, disappointment, and versions of yourself you never knew you have to meet. I realized turning 20 didn't automatically make me an adult. Life has been teaching me what adulthood actually looks like. And the first lesson caught me completely off guard. Freedom isn't as simple as you imagined. When I was younger, freedom was what I always wanted. I couldn't wait for the day nobody could tell me what to wear, where to go, who to talk to, or what time to be home. I thought having the freedom to make my own decisions would automatically make life better. Then my 20s arrived and I realized every freedom comes with a responsibility no one really talks about. You get to make your own decisions. You also live with the consequences of those decisions. You get to spend your own money. You also have to earn it, budget it, and accept that there are months where you can't buy everything you want. You get to choose your own path. You also carry the weight of wondering if you're making the right choices. As a teenager, life feels like you're waiting for someone to finally hand you the keys. Your 20s teach you that getting the keys doesn't mean you will know where you're going. It just means you're the one driving now. And I think that's one of the biggest shocks of adulthood. Not the freedom itself, the responsibility that comes with it. Once I started seeing freedom differently, another expectation slowly began to fall apart. I thought having my own life would automatically make me feel less alone. If responsibility was the first surprise, loneliness was the second. Nobody prepares you for how lonely your 20s can feel. That was one part of adulthood I never saw coming. Loneliness. Not the kind where you're completely by yourself. The kind where your phone is full of contacts yet you don't know who to call when life starts feeling heavy. You could have friends, you could have family, you could even be around people almost every day and still feel like nobody really knows what's going on in your life. As children and teenagers, life naturally puts people around us. We see classmates almost every day. We come home to family. We don't have to work hard to stay connected. Then adulthood changes that. Everyone starts building their own life. People move to different cities. Work takes over. Responsibilities grow. Friendships that once felt effortless now takes intention. And before you realize it, weeks and even months have gone by without having one real conversation. And I think that's one of the hardest parts of being in your 20s. You're surrounded by adults who all look like they're figuring life out. So you convince yourself you're the only one feeling lost. You stop reaching out. You tell yourself you will talk about it another day. Another day comes until carrying everything on your own starts feeling normal. I'm beginning to realize that adulthood does not make me lonely. It simply showed me that staying connected takes a lot more effort than I imagined. And once I started noticing that, I also noticed something else. The life I was living looked nothing like the life I had planned. Your 20s teach you to let go of the life you imagined. When I was younger, I had a picture of what my 20s would look like. Some of us thought we'll finish school or probably go for a master's or PhD, find a good job, become financially independent, maybe even get married earlier than this. Everything had its own timeline in our head. You're not the only one who had those thoughts. Most of us grow up believing life happens in a particular order. You study, you graduate, you get a job, you become successful, you meet the right one, everything works out. Then life quietly introduces itself. You graduate and can't find the job you thought you have. Or you discover the career you studied for isn't the one you actually want anymore. You watch people your age getting married while you're still trying to understand yourself. You see people buying cars, building businesses, traveling the world. And without realizing it, you begin comparing your real life to a version of life that only existed in your expectation. This is one of the hardest part of being in your 20s. Not that life looks different, but that you have to grieve the version of life you thought was guaranteed. I'm still learning that life doesn't have to follow my timeline before it becomes meaningful. And strangely enough, the more I let go of the life I expected, the more I begin to notice the life that's actually in front of me. But letting go of expectation doesn't stop another challenge from showing up, because while you're still trying to build your life, you also keep watching everyone else's. And this can make it incredibly easy to believe everyone else is ahead of you. This was something I wasn't really prepared for. I didn't realize how often I do measure my life against people my age. Not because I wanted to compete with them, but because their lives were constantly in front of me. You could open your phone for a few minutes, someone just got engaged, or someone just had a business, or someone bought a car, someone moved abroad, someone got their dream job. Then you put your phone down and you look at your life and you wonder if you're falling behind. I don't think comparison happened because we're bad people. I think it happens because we're trying to figure out if we're doing life the right way. We start treating other people's lives like a timeline we're supposed to follow. And before we know it, their milestones become the measure of our own progress. I still catch myself doing this. Then I always remind myself of something I'm still learning. Just because someone's life is moving differently from mine doesn't mean mine has stopped moving. We're all carrying different responsibilities, different opportunities, different losses, different starting points, different dreams. So comparing two lives as though they began in the same place was never going to be fair. The more I accept that, the easier it becomes to stop chasing someone else's version of success and start paying attention to the life I'm actually trying to build. Even then, there is one lesson I think has been harder than all the others. Your 20s doesn't always give you the chance to stop and heal before asking you to keep going. You see, your 20s rarely give you the space to pause. This is one of the things I'm still trying to understand. When I was younger, I imagined adulthood would eventually get me settled down. I thought there would be a point where life became less overwhelming, where I'll finally have time to breathe, to process everything, to catch up with myself. But that's not what my 20s have felt like. Just when one challenge begins to make sense, another one shows up. You're trying to recover from a difficult relationship. At the same time, you're worried about your career. You're trying to build financial stability. You're thinking about your future. Your family needs you. Bills need to be paid. Life doesn't stop because you're emotionally exhausted. It simply keeps moving. And after a while, you start telling yourself, I'll deal with this when things calm down. But for a lot of us, things don't calm down. There's always another responsibility waiting, another decision to make, another problem asking for your attention. I'm beginning to understand that this is why so many people carry pain for years. Not because they don't want to heal, but because they keep surviving one season after another, hoping to eventually find the time to sit with everything they've been carrying. I don't have the perfect answer for that. I'm still learning it myself. But I do know this. If we keep waiting for life to become completely quiet before we take care of ourselves, that moment may never come. And maybe that's why one of the biggest lessons your 20s teach you is that becoming the person you want to be isn't only about building a career or making more money. It's also about refusing to lose yourself while you're trying to build a life. After everything my 20s have taught me so far, I think there's one lesson that is slowly changing the way I see this season of my life. For a long time, I believed my 20s were a race to build a career, to become financially stable, to find the right person, to heal, to make the right decisions, to somehow have everything figured out before I reach a certain age. Now I'm beginning to wonder if I've been asking the wrong question. Maybe the goal isn't to have life figured out by your 20s. Maybe the goal is to keep becoming someone you genuinely like while life is still unfolding. Because if I'm always waiting until I have the perfect job or enough money or the perfect relationship or complete certainty before I allow myself to feel like I'm doing okay, I might spend this entire decade believing I'm behind. And I don't want that anymore. I'm still figuring things out. I still have days where I compare myself, days where I feel lonely, days where I wonder if I'm making the right decisions. I'm slowly learning that struggling doesn't mean I'm failing. It might simply mean I'm growing through a season that almost everyone finds difficult. Maybe that's what your 20s really are, not proof that you're feeling behind, but proof that you're becoming. And I think that's a much kinder way to live through them. I don't know what your 20s looks like right now. Maybe they look nothing like you imagined. Maybe you're trying to rebuild after something ended. Maybe you're questioning your career. Maybe you're feeling lonely. Maybe you're watching everyone else move through life and wondering if you're falling behind. If that's where you are, I hope this conversation reminds you that struggling through your 20s doesn't mean you're doing them wrong. It means you're living through one of the biggest transitions of your life. And while I can't promise you that this season will suddenly become easier, I do hope we can stop being so hard on ourselves while we are trying to find our way. Maybe your 20s were never meant to be the decade where you have everything figured out. Maybe they are simply the decade where you begin to meet the person you're becoming. Thank you for spending this few minutes with me. This is Inner Room. Until our next conversation, keep getting back to yourself. See you in the inner room. Bye.